Hello everybody and welcome to part 3 of What If Midoriya Was the Shield Hero. So far you guys have seemed to really enjoy the series and I'm enjoying making it, so here's another part. As always, if you guys like this series and want me to do more, please let me know by either hitting that like button or saying so in the comments below. I'm gonna say that at 75 likes I'm gonna start making the next episode. If you have any suggestions for anything in the series, please leave them in the comments below or in my Discord. Link to that in the description. But I actually ask questions and advice about future parts and series, so it would be cool if you joined. I actually wanted to run some of these ideas by someone, but no one would read the light novels and needed information. So lastly, I want to say that I've been reading the light novels and wikis and stuff, so there will probably be stuff in here, ability-wise, that hasn't appeared in the. With all that said, let's get started, shall we? In the previous episode, Midoriya saw a miserable girl and decided he wanted to free her from slavery, so she, however, stuck around with him, wanting to help Midoriya in his adventures. They spend 1 week trading and gathering money, and now the wave is about to hit. The clock ticks and Midoriya looks in his field of vision. He says, "Get ready, we have less than 10 seconds. Tick, 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 clang." The last grain of sand falls and the skies turn red. Both Midoriya and Raphtalia are then engulfed in a flash of light, being teleported to the plains outside of Melromar Castle. Raphtalia looks at the sky in fear. Midoriya matches her gaze, seeing portals form in the red skies. Monsters then start coming out form in the red skies. Monsters then start coming out of the portals. Midoriya spots the other heroes and decides to join them. He runs, catching up to them fairly quickly. Midoriya asks, "So what's the plan?" Itsuki answers, "We're going to go find the boss, the Chimera, and defeat him to end the wave." Raphtalia, while running alongside them, asks, "And how do we find it?" Ren says, "It should be up ahead." While running north to where the boss should be, Midoriya spots a lot of monsters heading to a nearby village, with a flare coming out of it. Midoriya recognizes the village and asks, "Has the village been evacuated?" Ren says, "Who cares? That's not our job. Leave it to the knights." Midoriya thinks on his past experiences and says, "Good luck." He starts running in the direction. Itsuki asks, "Where are you going?" Midoriya says, "To help out." Ren sees that Itsuki stopped and continues running to find the boss. While heading towards the village, Midoriya grabs Raphtalia and says this'll go quicker. He activates One for All to about 20%, which, thanks to his shield's resistance and his specialized armor, is like him powering up to 5%, and he zooms to the village, reaching it fairly quickly. He enters the destroyed village of Loot. He sets Raphtalia down and says, "Save as many people as you can. Our objective here is to evacuate and keep them safe." Raphtalia reaches for her sword and says, "Right." Midoriya then sees a man on the ground who is about to be stricken down by a zombie warrior. With One for All, he zooms in, kicking him in the face, killing the monster, severing his head from his body. Midoriya lands on the ground and jumps back into the air, killing another bee monster. Midoriya reaches down to the man who was being attacked and asks, "Are you alright?" He offers his hand and the man struggles to get up. Midoriya says, Go to the exit of the village. Get to safety." He powers up again and runs back into the fray, taking down as many monsters as he can. While fighting, he spots Raphtalia struggling against a monster that strikes at her. In the nick of time, Midoriya zooms over to her side, blocking the attack with a shield, dropping down One for All. Raphtalia then attacks, cutting the monster down. Midoriya says, "I don't know what the best strategy is here. These monsters are more in numbers and more powerful than we are used to. If I want you to stay safe, maybe I should stick to defense instead of offense?" Raphtalia says, "We have no time to strategize right now, Midoriya." Midoriya nods, saying, "Right." Activating One for All again, he thinks, "I need to lure them out of here and give everyone a chance to get away." Midoriya says, "Raphtalia, I need you to away." Midoriya says, Raphtalia, I need you to lead the evacuation. He runs into the fray again, hitting the zombies and other monsters left and right. He's using his light metal shield, which is one of the ones with the most defense he has at the moment. He takes down about 10 zombies by severing their heads with punches and kicks before getting hit. When hit, Midoriya thinks that barely hurt. He then punches the monster, killing it in one attack. While he fights them, Raphtalia tries to get everyone to leave. She gets many to leave, but there are some who refuse to let Midoriya fight alone. Midoriya thinks there are too many for me to take alone. He sees both villagers and other adventurers mixed into the fight and says, come on, get out of here. One adventurer asks, what about you? Midoriya says, I'm here, everything's going to be fine. Just focus on getting away. There's blocking the monster's path towards the villagers. They then turn their attention at Midoriya. Midoriya smiles and says, bring it on. After everyone evacuates, Midoriya and Raphtalia keep fighting, wanting to keep the damage to a minimum and to stop the monsters from following the villagers. After a bit, they spot some fireworks being shot into the sky. Midoriya gets a bad feeling and jumps at Raphtalia, blocking the attack with a shield and keeping her safe. After the fireworks stop falling, some knights step into the battlefield laughing. One even says, we burned them all to death in a single strike. Midoriya lets down his guard, letting Raphtalia up. The man looks at him and says, the shield hero. You're pretty tough. Midoriya says, looks like the attack stopped. Raphtalia realizes what has happened and strikes at the knights, like she does in canon. One of them blocks her attack, though, and she asks, did you know we were here? Answer me or I'll have... Blocks her attack, though, and she asks, did you know we were here? Answer me or I'll have your head. The knight captain says, draw your swords. One of the knights asks, what's this? Are you with the shield hero? Raphtalia says, I am. Respect him or die. The knight says, damn demi-human, how dare you point your blade at the royal knights? Raphtalia asks, what kind of knights attacks the people he's supposed to defend? Midoriya walks to her and touches her in the shoulder and says, let it be. Raphtalia says, but... Midoriya says, we still have work to do. The wave isn't over. They may be jerks, but they're still knights. The knight says, now, that's a sensible hero. Stay out of our way, and there won't be any trouble. Midoriya activates One for All and jumps forward, making the knight trip. Midoriya blocks the attack from a monster and says, for a knight, you aren't really aware of your surroundings. Raphtalia jumps in behind Midoriya's monster and says, for a knight, you aren't really aware of your surroundings. Raphtalia jumps in behind Midoriya, striking at the monster. Midoriya says, listen up, you guys get into formation. He turns to face some others and continues, you assist us and cover our flank. If you have any long-range attackers or magic users, use them to assist from behind the scenes. We'll keep them safe. The knights get up from the ground and asks, who are you to give orders to us? Midoriya jumps in to attack one of the larger monsters, sending it back with a kick. He then turns shouting, St. Louis smash! Taking down the monster. Midoriya lands on the ground with some blood covering him and says, I'm one of the 4 cardinal heroes. Now do it! If you want to survive the fight, you better listen to me. The head knight, indignant, says, listen up. We're going to assist the other 3 heroes. This battle is like lost cause. Most of the knights follow this one, but there are some managers to defeat a lot more monsters than Naofumi, and because of this, less lives are lost. Midoriya and the others keep fighting until the wave eventually ends. After the wave ends, Midoriya helps out a bit. He administers first aid to some of the villagers that were hurt, something he learned after his provisional licensing exam. He talks to some villagers and inspires them to rebuild, with many of them thanking him for helping out during the wave. Even the Lord walks to Midoriya to personally thank him for the help during the wave. A knight walks up to Midoriya and reluctantly says, thanks for the help. You know, they're holding a banquet as a reward for defeating the wave. You should probably go. The knight then leaves before Midoriya can say anything. Midoriya goes around helping out as many people as he can before leaving, because actually the people insisted he go. He sets up a temporary shelter for the people who lost their homes and make sure everyone has what they need to eat. Who lost their homes and make sure everyone has what they need to eat before leaving. Raftalia looks at him, remembering what happened to her when the waves hit her village. After they are done, they head back to their castle for the party. Again, insistent that the villagers, Midoriya didn't actually want to go. When Midoriya arrives, Itsuki asks, "Why are you so late?" Midoriya says, "Well, I was helping the village recuperate from the big attack. Many people did lose their homes and loved ones. We set up a temporary shelter and a distribution system for everyone to get food, at least. We also helped administer first aid." Ren chimes in and says, "I still think you should have left it to the knights." Midoriya says, "Well, they actually weren't much help. Most of them just left after bombarding the village with some sort of fire attack. If we hadn't evacuated it, many people would have lost their lives. Plus, they caused a lot of damage with that attack that..." Frank smiles and says, "You don't have to ask me. Go right ahead." His stomach growls and Midoriya says, "Actually, can you bring me something to eat too?" Raftalia smiles and says, "Sure." Itsuki says, "Interesting, so most of the knights didn't actually fight at all during the wave." Midoriya asks, "What do you mean?" Ren says, "The only knights that showed up were after the fight was over, and if what you're saying is true, then they are useless during the wave." In the background, Motoyasu spots Raftalia, getting some food and wants to chase after her. Mind wanting to disrupt Midoriya as much as she can stops him and whispers something to his ear. Raftalia returns to the table where the heroes are talking and hands a plate to Midoriya. Midoriya says, "Thanks, Raftalia." And she looks at him and says, "No problem." And they both sit to it. Midoriya asks, "So what level are you guys at the moment?" Itsuki says, "I reached level 42 yesterday." Ren says 44 at the moment. Itsuki says, "I reached level 42 yesterday." Ren says 44. Midoriya says, "Wow, I guess I really am behind. I'm only 29. I guess being the shield really set me back. Do you guys know any good places to train?" Itsuki grabs out a map and says, "Well, there is a village not too far from here. I think about a day and a half on foot. Has a dungeon for about level 30 adventurers. You can level up pretty quickly, bit there and get some good loot, actually." Midoriya grabs out his notebook and asks, "Where is the village?" Itsuki then says, "It's called Lafan. It's just beyond the forest." Midoriya says, "Thank you very much. This is going to be a great help." Ren says, "At least until you reach the level cap." Midoriya asks, "What's that?" Itsuki chuckles and says, "You really don't know anything, do you?" Midoriya says, "Guess not." Ren says there's a point in leveling where you can't level up anymore. It's at level 40. After that, you need to class upgrade in order to keep going. Midoriya asks, "How do I get that?" Itsuki says, "Well, you can get it at the church for..." Motoyasu walks to Midoriya furiously and throws his glove at him and says, "Midoriya, time to fight." Midoriya, as he takes a bite from his food, asks, "What do you mean?" "The fight is over. We already beat the wave." Raftalia says, "He's challenging you to a duel, Midoriya." Midoriya says, "Oh, okay. Why though?" Motoyasu stutters and says, "Why? Because you made poor Raftalia here your slave, and she obeys your every command." Midoriya says, "You misjudge the situation. It's not like that." Motoyasu in a demanding tone says, "Free her." Midoriya says, "It's them fight me. If I win, I get to free Raftalia." Raftalia asks, "And what happens if Midoriya wins?" Motoyasu says, "That won't happen. But if he wins, then things can stay the same." Itsuki chimes in and says, "Hold on. That's not how duels work. In order for it to be fair to both parties, have to get something beneficial out of it." Motoyasu grits his teeth and says, "Fine, what do you want?" Midoriya thinks for a moment and says, "How about if I win, you give me 500 silvers? Should be enough to pay for the slave crest removal." Small interjection here on my part. I don't know exactly how much the slave crest removal costs, but Naofumi is usually given 500 silvers, and because of the duel wasn't going to get anything, so I'm just going to make the baker the price. I'm just gonna go with 500. Motoyasu says, fine. You're not gonna win, but fine. He laughs and says, if you win, I'll even give you 1,000 silvers. No, 2,000. Midoriya says, it's a deal then. If that's the agreement, I accept your duel. They shake hands and Midoriya says, either way, I get something out of it. As the preparations for the duel start, Itsuki walks to Midoriya and asks, why exactly do you have a slave in your party? Midoriya says, it's a long story, but to make it short, I found a sick girl on the verge of death who was being sold as a slave. I used almost all my money to buy her and then nurse her back to health. I told her she could leave, but she wanted to stick around and help after she found out who I was. Since then, I've been saving up for the slave crush removal, but didn't have enough money. Itsuki says, so that's why you said you were winning either way. A knight walks to Midoriya and says, this way. Midoriya walks away with him. Itsuki says, this way. Midoriya walks away with him. Itsuki says, good luck. Midoriya smiles and says, don't worry, I'm going to win this. Itsuki thinks, yeah, right. With just the shield, there's no way you're going to be able to do it. A knight gets in center stage and says, the duel between the spear hero and the shield hero will now begin. This duel will end only when one of the combatants is either pinned or admits that he has been defeated. This duel will take place in the presence of King Melromark and the Pope, and is thus legitimate and official. Both of the fighters walk to the center of the arena. Mine is wishing Motoyasu good luck from the sides, while Raftali shouts from the stands, you can do it, Midoriya! Midoriya smiles at her. He then looks forward and centers his attention on Motoyasu. Motoyasu asks, do you remember the folk tale about the irresistible spear and the unmovable shield? Midoriya asks, do you mean? Motoyasu gets into his battle position and answers, whatever. Be a man, Midoriya, and admit defeat. Midoriya gets into a battle position himself and says, no way, we haven't even started the fight yet. He selects the light metal shield and prepares for the fight. The knight in charge of the whole event says, ready? Begin! The fight starts and Motoyasu charges at Midoriya with the spear in hand. Midoriya charges up one for all. As Motoyasu attacks, he blocks with his shield. Motoyasu hits him again and again. He says, not too bad, because Midoriya has blocked all the attacks. Midoriya slips his defense, making Motoyasu fall forward. He grabs the spear and, using one for all, kicks Motoyasu in the stomach, throwing him forward, keeping his spear. The spear disappears from Midoriya's hand and reappears in Motoyasu's. Motoyasu gets up from the attack, saying, what the hell? He isn't supposed to have so much attack power, he's just the shield. Midoriya charges more, zooms in, punching Motoyasu again. Motoyasu tries to block the attack, but Midoriya is too fast and punches him in the arm, then kicking him in the stomach. In a stance, people look in awe at the battle, realizing how powerful the shield actually is. Itsuki whispers, so he has an ability too. Midoriya hits Motoyasu again, throwing him away. Midoriya, standing tall, says, you know, I'm more than an unstoppable object than you. Motoyasu gets mad at this statement and engages. He even charges at Midoriya using the Chaos Spear. Midoriya thinks too many spears to block, and using one for all, he jumps back a good 7 meters, evading most of the attacks. Midoriya says, now, you've got to cool down. You know the spear is an interesting weapon. It allows for great attack, but only at mid-range level. All our weapons have different stats. Itsuki's its long range, Ren's short range. The thing is, if someone gets close enough against you, or Itsuki, you can't do anything about it. Motoyasu looks at in surprise as more and more green lightning starts coming out of Midoriya's body. He gets in a defensive position, but it's useless. Midoriya zooms in, punching Motoyasu twice in the stomach, sending him flying. But before he can fly away, however, Midoriya grabs onto his arm and slams him into the ground, pinning him. Midoriya says, you may have more experience in this world, especially against the monsters, but I have a lot more practice fighting humans and analyzing people's fighting styles. You have never fought against a human, it looks like. In the stands, some people say, impressive, the shield hero might even win. Midoriya has Motoyasu pinned and says, "Be a man and admit defeat." Motoyasu with anger says, "Never, you coward!" A gust of wind hits Midoriya, setting him flying away. Motoyasu says, "Now's my chance!" He lunges at Midoriya, prepared to attack, summoning his most powerful spear and striking at him. Midoriya changes his shield to the two-headed black dog shield and blocks. One head blocks Motoyasu's attack, and the other shield sends the head lunges at Motoyasu, biting his arm. Motoyasu steps back angry, rage filling his body. He lunges up Midoriya again. Midoriya thinks, keep him off his game. The anger is making him more crazy and out of control. Motoyasu attacks Midoriya. Midoriya ducks and sweeps Motoyasu's legs, making him fall. Midoriya grabs his arm and pins him to the ground. He looks at where the previous airstrike came from and sees mine there. He thinks, great, her again. Can't just leave me alone, can she? Midoriya prepares his shield to block any more magical wind attacks. Time passes with Motoyasu pinned, with Midoriya blocking every single wind attack that's thrown his way. First a minute passes, then 2. During this time, Motoyasu tries with all of his might to struggle out, but Midoriya keeps him pinned, strengthened, not allowing Motoyasu to weasel out. After the 3rd minute passes, Midoriya shouts, "Aren't you going to end the fight? I thought you said the fight would end when either we surrendered or we pinned the other one down." "Well, I pinned him twice already and have him pinned for 3 minutes. Not even her attempts have pushed me away, so call it." Motoyasu, with his head looking in the other direction, asks, "What are you talking about, her pushing you away?" Midoriya answers, "Oh, your friend has been using some sort of wind attack to try and push me away. Worked the first time, but not anymore." Motoyasu stays silent for a moment. In the stands, Izuki says, "This is ridiculous." Both of them get up and go talk with the king. After the 4th minute of having him pinned passes, the king says, "The duel is over." He pauses for a moment and reluctantly says, The shield hero has won." Midoriya lets go of Motoyasu and takes a step back. Motoyasu gets up and, with a seething rage, starts attacking Midoriya. Midoriya blocks and evades attack after attack. Ren then jumps into the fray, blocking his attack. Motoyasu asks, "What are you doing? You're not supposed to interfere with the duel." Ren says, "The duel is over." Itsuki, with his bow pointing at Motoyasu, adds, "It has been for over a minute. You lost." Motoyasu falls to his knees and says, I can't be. I can't have lost. I lost? No." Rage starts status, then opens up and says, "Requirements met. Rage series unlocked." Itsuki walks to Midoriya and asks, What was that power you were using? It's not something any of our weapons have unlocked yet." Midoriya says, "Oh, that's my quirk." Ren asks, "What's a quirk?" Itsuki asks, "Is it similar to my ability?" Midoriya says, "In my world, some time ago, superpowers started appearing. It started in Ching City and quickly became the norm. About 80% of people have a quirk. Mine's called superpower. It allows me to boost my general strength and speed. Although if I use too much of it, I can break my limbs and bones. Reason I have this scar on my hand." In his own world, Motoyasu overhears pieces of this and thinks, "That power, I want it. I need it. It has to be mine. It should be mine. He want it. I need it. It has to be mine. It should be mine." He whispers, "Give it to me. Why do you have it and I don't?" Before him, another message says, "Requirements met. Envy series unlocked." His world is fogged. He only sees pieces, shadows. It's very similar to what Motoyasu sees when he's what Naofumi sees when he is blocked, when he loses Raftalia. Itsuki says, "So it is like my ability." Ren asks, "What do you mean?" Itsuki says, "I have an E-class ability called Accuracy." Midoriya says, "Cool." Midoriya walks to Motoyasu and reaches his hand, smiling. "Good match, Motoyasu." Multi walks into the battlefield furious and says, "We demand a rematch with you, where you don't cheat as you did." Midoriya asks, "What are you talking about? I didn't cheat." Itsuki says, "It's a natural ability, nothing illegal about it." Ren says, "If anybody cheated, it was you with those air blasts." Mauchi tries to complain but doesn't get anywhere with it. After realizing she can't do anything to further antagonize Midoriya, she goes to Motoyasu's side to help him up. Motoyasu snaps out of it and angrily throws a bag filled with 20 gold pieces at Midoriya. Midoriya receives the small bag and asks, "What's this?" Motoyasu says, "You won fairly. That's what we agreed upon, the equivalent of 20,000 silver pieces." Midoriya bows and says, "Thank you. You fought well." Motoyasu looks at him angrily and says, "Save it. I will not be patronized." Mine walks away, thinking that she might have backed the wrong horse here. The next day, Midoriya attends the reward ceremony. The king says, "As a reward for the efforts during the wave and for fulfilling my request, Master Motoyasu will receive 4,000 silvers. And Young's master Itsuki and Ren will receive 3,800 silvers." They are all handed their money. The king continues, "Finally, I've set aside 500 silvers for the shield hero. However, because of winning during yesterday's duel, he has already received sufficient funds and will not receive any more." Motoyasu smiles and Midoriya asks, "What the hell are you talking about?" Itsuki says, "That's not going to fly." Ren says, the duel and the rewards from it are something independent of this. Furthermore, I want to call his previous crimes into question. Your interference and ignorance. After spending more time with Midoriya, we think it's impossible that he could have done such things to the princess. Midoriya asks, "What did I do to the princess?" The king shouts, "Preposterous! He committed a felony." Mine says, "He is lucky to be alive after what he did to me." Itsuki says, "That's just it. I don't think that he did it." Ren says, "There isn't sufficient evidence to support the claims and it doesn't match his character at all." Motoyasu says, "What are you talking about? It totally does. He has a slave in his party, for crying out loud." Itsuki says, "Not in the way you think. He is an incredibly kind person. The only reason he even bought this slave is because she was on the verge of death." Motoyasu says, "That can't be true." Raphtalia says, "It is. He saved me from abuse and nursed me, giving me medicine and anything I needed." Motoyasu says, "But he forced you to fight and nursed me, giving me medicine and anything I needed." Motoyasu says, "But he forced you to fight for him." Raphtalia says, that isn't true. I picked up the sword to be able to defend myself. He gave me the choice of freedom, but I wanted to help him." Motoyasu asks, "What about the slave crests?" Midoriya says, "I'm poor. I used all the money to buy her out of slavery. You think I can really afford to remove it? That's why I asked for more money if I won." Itsuki says, "Justice has to be served here. I really don't think Midoriya did any of the things he was accused of. You have been undermining him and hurting him at every turn, and now you refuse to give him more money. The money he so righteously deserves. The money he is owed for being a hero." Mine says he isn't getting any funds because he didn't do anything of value during the wave. Midoriya is about to defend himself when Ren interjects. "He did more than the knights did. He used his time and efforts to make sure all the villagers were safe. He protected your citizens and your towns. You refuse to compensate him for that?" The king grits his teeth and says, "Fine. I'll give him the minimum agreed upon amount, 500 silvers. And the charges to his name will be dropped until we can arrange for a proper trial. But that's all I will do for him." Midoriya looks at Itsuki and Ren and says, "Thank you." Itsuki smiles and says, "It's only fair." The king says, "Now be gone with you, hero." Midoriya bows and he and Raphtalia leave with all of their earnings. As they walk through town, Raphtalia asks, "What are you going to do with the money, Midoriya? Get some new gear?" Midoriya answers, well, I don't think we should focus on that right now. They then go to the slave trader's tent, and he welcomes them with open arms. He says, I heard that you got your chargers dropped. I tip my hat off to you, Sir Hero. You certainly managed to get things done. What can I do for you today? The merchant spots Raftali and says, why, you've certainly grown into a fine specimen. I would say you are worth 25 pieces of gold now. Midoriya says, she isn't for sale. Actually, I'm here to free her from slavery, get the slave crest removed. And for a couple extra slaves. The merchant asks, why would you want her slave crest removed? Midoriya says, that's my business, something which you should stay away from. The merchant says, my apologies. So, is there any type of slave you're in the market for? Midoriya answers, well, I'll take the cheapest ones you got. The ones that seem the most pathetic. Answers, well, I'll take the cheapest ones you got. The ones that seem the most pathetic. The merchant shows Midoriya around, sets his eyes up onto some specific ones. A rabbit demi-human who has broken arm, and a human named Rhino, who probably shouldn't be there. Midoriya says, she doesn't look like a demi-human. What is she doing here? The merchant explains, well, whereas humans are usually illegal as slaves, the royal family did sell her here. We don't just sell demi-humans and beastmen. Those are the most common. Normal humans are rare because of their illegality. This one in particular was sold to us for a pretty good price by the redhead princess. Midoriya looks at her. She looks back at him with a horrified look in her eyes. After all she's been through, it's normal to have a look like that. The merchant sees Midoriya's interest and says, she is level 20. She can be used for adventuring, although her previous owners have only returned her use as to spend the night. Midoriya says, I'll take her. Then they go to the main tent where Midoriya's blood is put to the magic ink to transfer their ownership to him. Midoriya spots the ink and asks, can I have a bit of these? The slave trader says, why most certainly, my good sir. Midoriya feeds the liquid into a shield, unlocking 2 new shields. After his is given the ownership of the slaves, Raphtalia gets her slave crest removed, being set free. And Midoriya invites her to her party, which she accepts. Midoriya spots a bunch of eggs and asks, what are those? The trader answers, this is our monster egg lottery. Midoriya says, a Philolia? What's that? You mean those monsters that carry everyone around? The slave trader says, yes, and the big prize is a dragon, and may I remind you, those are worth at least 20 pieces of gold. Midoriya says, I'll take one. Might prove useful to explore places quickly, especially if the party gets bigger. The trader rubs his hands together and says, excellent. Midoriya asks, how much do I owe you? The slave trader says, well, the demi-human is worth 25 silvers, the human 80, the egg is 100, plus the slave crest removal. Tell you what, let's make it a package deal and say 800 silvers. Midoriya says, okay, but if I find out you scam me on the deal, there will be consequences. The slave trader says, why, most certainly, my good sir. He leaves the money on the corner and leaves with his new slaves and the egg. Anyway, that's where I'm leaving it off for today. I originally planned to make this part go a bit further with the story, but I have already written a lot and the video is already getting long, so I'm stopping here. If you enjoy this series and want to see more, please let me know by either hitting that like button or by saying so in the comments below. All feedback and questions are always welcomed in the comments or in my Discord, where I actually encourage you to join to discuss ideas. Especially if you know information about Rising of the Shield Hero, it may really help me. Thank you very much. Please go check it out. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this episode, and until next time, have a fantastic day, everyone. Bye!